What's good with y'all boys, man? It's your boy JR Bless coming to you guys with another video. And now today we got the UFC 291 pick video going for you guys. If y'all want to see the best DraftKings fantasy plays and the best bets you guys can place for UFC 291, drop a like on this video. And guys, be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so whenever I upload all these lit videos for you guys can see it. But we're gonna jump straight into it. So opening up the card, we got Priscilla Couture versus Miranda Maverick. Now this fight is going to be very simple. This is going to be a grappler versus striker match. Now Miranda Maverick has had a lot of trouble recently with grapplers, so if Priscilla Couture was a grappler, I would be kind of concerned. But due to the fact that Priscilla Couture is not a grappler and she doesn't have the greatest takedown defense in the world, I'm going to go with Miranda Maverick to win this fight. Now, because of how weird, Miranda Maverick's fights have looked in the past, I would say maybe it'd be a little bit worth it to put a little bit of money on Priscilla Couture. But then again, I'm probably not even going to do it because the only reason Miranda Maverick had any kind of trouble was because she was going up against other grapplers herself. So Miranda Maverick should be the clear play for this fight. Next up, we got Matthew Simmonsberger versus Uros Medic. Now this fight should be kind of interesting. I think it could end up being a good fight. Matthew Simmonsberger has power, so does Uros Medic. The only difference is that Matthew Simmonsberger will actually engage in wrestling and look for wrestling exchanges, takedowns and stuff like that, if it needs to be, get there. And Uros Medic really doesn't look for those types of exchanges. So just off of that alone, Matthew Simmonsberger does have more ways to win. And also, Uros Medic's takedown defense is really not something that's like great at all. It's literally a 66%. So if Matthew Simmonsberger does want the takedowns, he can get them. If Medic was actually the type to go for takedowns, I'll be a little bit concerned because Simmonsberger's takedown defense is terrible at like a 52%. But I can see Simmonsberger being able to win this match. Medic does leave openings for him to be hit early in the fight. And he's never gone 3 rounds in his career. And, with the experience that Simmonsberger does have, if the fight, the longer that the fight gets, I think it's the worse it'll get for Medic. And, Simmonsberger actually can finish the fight early too. Because like I said before, Medic does leave openings for himself to be hit in the fight. So I'm going to lean towards Matthew Simmonsberger to get the win in this fight. Next up, we got Salvador versus CJ Vergara. And this fight probably going to be a contender for fight of the night. Obviously, we know the main event would that potentially be, but it's a flyweight fight with 2 exciting fighters, and I think this fight is going to play out on the feet for the most part. Neither guy really goes for takedowns, but the thing about it is that Salvador is very reckless on the feet, very wild. He just throws really wide hooks, and I think that CJ Vergara should be able to catch Salvador and should be able to put him out. But at the same time, CJ Vergara did have, a lot of adversity in his his most recent fight. He was caught by some spinning attacks though. Salvador is flashy, but he doesn't really throw spinning attacks like spinning wheel kicks. It's more like weird, unorthodox strikes. So there's a chance that CJ Vergara could get caught, because we've seen him have to deal with the adversity in his most recent fight, but he was able to bounce back in the second round and get a finish. Salvador is just too wild, to be honest, and he really hasn't faced any real good level of competition, and when he has, he's pretty much lost every single time. Even like 2 out of his last 3 wins or something like that, he's faced like 2 different opponents that were 0, like they were like making their debuts. So he really doesn't have any real experience, but it's MMA, it's a fight. He could run in there and just knock out CJ Vergara, but I'm not gonna go with the the less experienced, more wild, out of control guy. I'm gonna go with CJ Vergara to win this fight. All right, so the next fight we got up on the card is gonna be Jake Matthews versus Darius Flowers. Jake Matthews was originally scheduled to fight Miguel Baeza, but he dropped out from the fight. So Darius Flowers is stepping up on short notice, taking this fight. He did have a fight on Contenders series where he got like some type of slam knockout, and his opponent tapped to it. But when I look at Darius Flowers, he is powerful. He does like to shoot, big blastable takedowns, but he's like pretty much like an Energizer Bunny or something like that. He just comes out quickly, and I think that this is why you guys should watch the breakdowns through the entire video. I think that the elevation is going to be a big thing for everybody, pretty much. But I think that for Darius Flowers here, I think he's gonna really blow himself out very early. And if you guys don't know anything about Jake Matthews, he's super tough. He hasn't taken a lot of damage over his career. His last fight, he did get dropped 3 times, but he fought through it. He outstruck his opponent in his last 2 rounds. He still did lose because he got dropped too many times. But before that, in like his previous 16 fights or so, he's only been dropped 1. So Jake Matthews is super tough. And there's a glaring hole on the ground for Darius Flowers. He's been submitted about 4 times, and Jake Matthews has the majority of his, of his wins from submission. So I could either see Jake Matthews hanging out on the feet with them, which I really don't think he should too long. But I could see either that, or I could see Jake Matthews getting submission victory over Darius Flowers. I just think that the short notice and the elevation of Salt Lake City is going to be a little bit too much for Darius Flowers to overcome. All right, next up we got Roman Kopylov versus Claudio Ribeiro. Now this is going to be a fight between 2, strikers for the most part. In Claudio Ribeiro's most recent fight, he did kind of want to show off his wrestling, because in his previous fight he did get kind of like controlled in the wrestling, and it led to him getting finished. Roman Kopylov, he himself, trains with Dagestan wrestling and stuff like that, trains in Dagestan, but he's a really great striker. He's, his main game is not to wrestle, but he is good with the striking, like very precise with it. And I just think that in this fight that will be enough for him to win. This is another fight where I feel like elevation is going to play a key part of it. And Claudio Ribeiro, he does tend to slow down as the fight gets longer. He is dangerous, he is powerful, he does like to shoot, but Roman Kopylov does have great takedown defense. And he just had a fight against Puniali Soriano that was kind of the same type of fighter that Claudio is, very powerful, can blow himself out. And I think that's exactly what's going to happen in this fight. Now, obviously, guys, in fights like this, you never know. A guy like Claudio could run in there and land a crazy strike, and it could be over. But I'm going to pick Roman Kopylov to win this fight. He himself is very dangerous. Great kickboxing, great leg kicks, good timing on takedowns. And I think that he's going to be able to just outlast Claudio Ribeiro and potentially get a finish. So Roman Kopylov should be able to get this job done in this fight. All right, so next up, we got Derek Lewis versus Marcos Rogerio de Lima. Now, this is going to be another fight I feel like plays out, a little bit of altitude is going to be an issue here for, I think, both of these guys. But de Lima should be able to win this fight, right? Derek Lewis is on a 3-fight losing streak. He hasn't looked like he wants to really be out there, if I'm being honest, just kind of going out there to get paid. And he's been super gun shy, like he's been super low volume. And de Lima should be able to go in there and get the takedowns, but this is going to be an extremely low confident pick, because it's not like de Lima's dominant with the wrestling, or it's like he chooses to go to it. He can do it. He does average about a takedown or so, in every fight, but he's not that strong on top. So there's a chance that he could get takedowns on Derek Lewis, and Derek Lewis could pop up. And the thing about Derek Lewis is that his power does carry on for multiple rounds. So it's not like he's just a first round or bust. He could linger around and land a crazy strike. He's done it before. If you guys think I'm lying, go look at UFC 229. He was able to get Volkov out of there in like the last couple seconds of the round, I think it was in the 3rd round. So his power will linger, but because of the trajectory of where his career is right now, I just feel like de Lima should be able to, get the takedowns. He should be able to pretty much just lay on top of Derek Lewis. And de Lima does throw heavy, so he could even get Derek Lewis out of there with a strike. But, Derek Lewis is always going to be one of those fighters that's always going to be live for a knockout. So I would say the pick should be de Lima, but extremely low confidence. I'm hoping that the altitude plays a factor against Derek Lewis and he gets tired really quickly, and that can just help de Lima get the win. But it's Derek Lewis. He can land one punch and the fight could be over. But yeah, y'all already know what it is. I'm going with Marcos Rogerio de Lima to win this fight. All right, next up we got Trevin Giles versus Gabriel Bonfim. Now this fight, it could be over pretty quickly if I'm being honest. Once again, guys, every time it comes to my mind in the the regular analysis of these breakdowns, I'm gonna bring up the elevation because it's gonna affect some people. I think for the most part, it might affect most of the fighters, and then some fighters it won't really affect. But Trevin Giles in his most recent fight against Preston Parsons, he went against a guy that was kind of a little bit not the same kind of fight style as Gabriel Bonfim, but aggressive, trying to get takedowns, swinging. And Trevin Giles did get into some dangerous positions on the ground where If he was going up against a better BJJ guy, I feel like he would have got submitted or choked out or something. And I feel like that's going to be the same case in this fight with Gabriel Bonfim. Gabriel Bonfim, he is going to pressure forward. He is going to throw strikes out there. He is going to try to, you know, if he doesn't get the takedowns and you shoot on him, he'll get you in a situation where you're in a bad spot to be choked out or submitted in some kind of way. So I feel like the fight's going to play out like that. The only thing that I'm kind of worried about a bit is Giles did show an ability to be able to, you know, fight behind his jab a little bit, even though he does get tired as the fight goes on. He will fight behind his jab, and, you know, fighting behind your jab can be good because in a fight like this where Gabriel Bonfim is going to be swinging a lot, his chin can tend to be a bit exposed at times, and it wouldn't be the most shocking thing in the world if Giles were able to get a knockout here. Obviously, you guys see that Gabriel Bonfim is undefeated, but that doesn't mean that a guy can't be knocked out. So my official pick for this fight is going to be Gabriel Bonfim because I just feel like Giles, he just was in too many positions or situations where he would have been finished if he fought anybody better than Preston Parsons in terms of like the grappling department and even with a bit more power. So I feel like that's going to be the case here. I feel like Gabriel Bonfim is going to be able to get the win. But at the same time, you know, putting money on Giles maybe a little bit wouldn't be the most insane thing in the world. All right, so next up we got Michael Chiesa versus Kevin Holland. Now this fight, I feel like it's going to only go two ways. I really feel like this fight's going to go. I feel like either Michael Chiesa will be able to get the takedowns on Kevin Holland and he'll win the fight like that, just, you know, going with the wrestling pace. Or in the middle of the exchanges, Kevin Holland could snatch something up, maybe a Darce choke, and be able to submit Michael Chiesa. I really don't see this fight playing out no other way. Every single time that Kevin Holland fights someone that's capable of grappling, he usually loses. Like, that's literally not even for a debate. He's only beating guys that are like average strikers. I would say his best win to date, like his best win at middleweight was against Jacare Souza, and Jacare Souza was on the way out. And he got some weird KO from the bottom, right? Then he went on to lose his next couple fights at middleweight. Then up at welterweight, he's had 3 wins, and one is to Alex Cowboy Oliveira, who's never been ranked. Tim Means, who's old as hell. And his best win at welterweight is a, you know, not the same Santiago Ponzinibbio. You guys know that back in the days. If you don't know, Santiago Ponzinibbio was ranked as high as like number 7 in the welterweight division. But since he's came back from all those injuries he had to deal with, he has not been the same Santiago Ponzinibbio. And that's Kevin Holland's best win. And we know his other loss at welterweight was against Khamzat Chimaev. He got blown through. And Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, he got blown through. So Michael Chiesa, he's not the greatest guy at welterweight, but he was on a, you know, win streak at welterweight until he lost to Vicente Luque, who's very dangerous. That's the only reason why I feel like, you know, something like that could happen to him versus Kevin Holland, because Kevin Holland is dangerous in himself. You know what I mean? He is dangerous. He's not as proven at welterweight like Vicente Luque was when he defeated Michael Chiesa, but nonetheless, he's dangerous. So for this pick in this fight, kind of, you guys are probably like, who do you think is going to win? For this pick, I'm going to have to go with Michael Chiesa. Kevin Holland's wrestling is just not, his takedown defense is just not there. It's just not there. It has not been there. And I don't expect it to just all of a sudden be there now. The only thing is that he could snatch up some random choke on Michael Chiesa, because that's been the issue in Michael Chiesa's career. He's been susceptible to being choked. Literally that. He's been susceptible to being either Darce choked or, you know, rear naked choked, arm barred. Like, there's just ways that he can be choked out on the floor. So yeah, I'm gonna say that Michael Chiesa should be able to win this fight with the wrestling, but watch out for Kevin Holland to get some random weird choke on Chiesa. All right, so next up we got Tony El Kukui Ferguson versus Bobby Green. Now guys, I know what you guys are thinking, like, man, Tony's done. Yeah, you know, I see that, right? He's on a 5-fight losing streak. But to be fair, right, guys, put it like this. Tony's last fight was at welterweight, right? Short notice fight against Nate Diaz. If you guys don't know, UFC 279 had a whole bunch of wild things going on, and it ended up being Tony Ferguson versus Nate Diaz, which was a late replacement fight. Ended up being 5 rounds, right? At 170, I'll say this. That version of 170, Tony Ferguson looked terrible. He looked really slow. Yeah, he just looked slow more than anything. But if you look at his recent fight at lightweight, we know how that ended. insane front kick by Michael Chandler. But guys, in the first round, Tony Ferguson did look good. He did drop Chandler, and he did hurt him, and he looked good off of his back. So I'll say this, right? Both guys are volume strikers. I mean, obviously we know that Bobby Green is a volume striker. He's gonna put volume out there, hands kind of below, next to his hips, but he throws out volume. He's, defensively responsible. And logically, I think Bobby Green should win this fight. I'm a fan of Tony Ferguson, so I don't want to say that, but I think logically Bobby Green should be able to win the fight. He's gonna put the volume out there, and he has the ability to get takedowns. Tony Ferguson's takedown defense is not that great, and Bobby Green, he's never really been submitted on the floor before, so he's gonna be safe for the most part on the floor. But I will say this, guys, I am gonna be putting money on Tony Ferguson. Something in me just makes me feel like he will be able to pull this off. He looked really good at his last fight in lightweight until that front kick, obviously. So I know a lot of people are gonna be like, yeah, they're definitely not gonna think that Tony can do anything. But I still believe in Tony, man. For as long as he's gonna be walking around that octagon, I believe that he can get this done. So yeah, just don't sleep on Tony Ferguson, guys. Do not sleep on Tony Ferguson. I know at this point in his career he's a lot older and whatnot, but there is a possibility that he could, go out there and he could either hurt Bobby Green, or you never know, he might be able to catch him with a submission, guys. You never really know, guys. MMA is crazy. We've seen crazier. And especially with a guy like Tony, former interim champion, we know what he did at lightweight. Longest, he had a 12-fight win streak at lightweight. We can't just act like all of a sudden, if he were to go out there and get a win, that we'd be so shocked, like, oh my goodness, we can't believe that Tony Ferguson just did that. You never know, guys. And if we look at who he's lost to at lightweight, guys, let's take a look at this. Short notice fight versus Justin Gaethje when he was preparing for Khabib, months of training camp. Because if you guys don't know, back then, 2020. That fight got announced months prior. Ferguson versus Khabib, it got announced months prior. Then the pandemic hit, and then Tony ended up trying to be a good guy and take that fight. Versus a deadly striker when he was preparing for a grappler. Okay, great. He got stopped in the 5th round. Then Charles Oliveira. Do I have to speak about Charles Oliveira? He's finished everybody. Guys, Charles Oliveira has won like 12 of his last 13 fights. All of them were finishes except for Tony Ferguson, guys. That's how good Charles Oliveira is. So you guys can take that how you want to take it. And he's like an upgraded version of Tony Ferguson, just more dangerous. Then he lost to Beneil Dariush. Beneil Dariush, that loss kind of bothers me just a bit, because I mean, I don't want to try to do that to Dariush because he just lost to Oliveira. But he is a good grappler. Tony didn't really have much for Dariush on the ground, and that's how the fight played out. Then we saw the Michael Chandler fight. That's the best we've ever seen Tony Ferguson look in the first round. And then in the second round, he just got caught by a wild guy in Michael Chandler. So in a fight like this where he's going up against Bobby Green, I mean, Bobby Green is good. He's a good striker. But let's not act like Bobby Green is a world beater or a former champion in any organization or, a soon and upcoming title challenger. That's not the case. So Bobby Green logically probably should win, but my money's going to be on Tony Ferguson, guys. So you guys can take that how you want to for a pick. You know what I'm saying? It is what it is. But on to the next. All right, y'all. So next up, we got Stephen Wonderboy Thompson versus Michel Pereira. And this fight is going to be very simple for me. Guys, we know that Stephen Wonderboy Thompson is the by far better striker. And, Michel Pereira is very wild. Sometimes he does like to mix in takedowns. But the biggest thing for me in this fight, guys, it's going to be this, right? Stephen Wonderboy Thompson is more of a fighter that he'll wait and he'll counter you, and he's very dangerous on the feet. His takedown defense is not the greatest, but he's only lost to pure grapplers. Like, if you look at Wonderboy's most recent fights and see who he actually lost to, Gilbert Burns, Bilal Muhammad, those two guys are very deadly at welterweight with the grappling. They're going to beat most people that grapple like that. And then other than that, Wonderboy has, been winning his fights for the majority, for the most part. But I just can't see Michel Pereira just coming in there and being able to beat Wonderboy, especially at altitude. Like, this guy fights very, very wild. And at altitude, like, I feel like Michel Pereira is going to gas out. We've seen him gas before, get tired or slow down. Yes, he is on a current, like, 4-fight win streak or so, but it's not like he's been out there beating, top ranked guys. Like, I mean, like Chaos Williams, Nico Price, Andre Fiallo, a broken down Santiago Ponzinibbio by split decision. Like, this is not somebody that I'm going to put my money in. If he was a grappler, oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, obviously. But guys, this fight is literally tailor-made for Wonderboy. If you guys haven't seen it, he literally said he wants fights that are gonna excite the fans. That's the only fights he's gonna accept with strikers. So this fight is tailor-made for Wonderboy to win. And at altitude, I just definitely don't see a way that Michel Pereira can win this fight. Maybe if it was not in altitude, you know, maybe he'd have a bit of a shot, get some weird wrestling exchanges going. But I think Wonderboy takedown defense will be able to hold up for the most part versus a guy, you know, Michel Pereira, who's not this insane grappler. So I'm going with Wonderboy to win this fight. All right, so finally to the co-main event, we got Jan Blachowicz versus Alex Pereira. Now this fight right here, man, I did a lot of digging into this fight. Obviously I'm very interested in it because of the who the two fighters are, but style wise for this fight, I went to go look back at Jan Blachowicz versus Israel Adesanya because that was the last time that he's fought any type of kickboxer the caliber that Alex Pereira might be. And obviously Jan Blachowicz did very well in that fight. He won the fight. The wrestling is what really won it for him in the later rounds 4 and 5. He didn't really go to the wrestling too much, but he was able to hang on the feet earlier in the fight. Now, some people might say, well, Jan Blachowicz didn't wrestle until the 4th and the 5th round. And what I can tell you guys is this, right? Jan Blachowicz is not historically known to be a grappler or a wrestler of any sort. Like Israel Adesanya is his only takedowns he has over like his past 10 fights. And it was only 3 takedowns. He went like 3 or 5 on takedowns. Reason I bring that up is because it's a 5-round fight, and at that point it was the first time that Jan Blachowicz had ever went 5 rounds in his career, and it'd probably be in his best interest to maybe try to wrestle later. I don't know, like he looked a little bit not fully gassed in that Izzy fight, but if he tried to push a wrestling pace for the entire fight, maybe it wouldn't be too smart because he'd end up gassing out, and the fight would be probably completely different. In this fight, I really do believe that he will get the wrestling going a lot earlier, and I think he'll be able to beat Alex Pereira. Now, with that being said, Alex Pereira is going up to 205. He's not going to have to drain himself to get down to 185. Everybody always wondered, how in the world is this guy making 185? He's so big, yada, yada, yada. Him at 205, Alex Pereira, he's probably going to be more powerful than he was obviously at 185. The difference is that, Jan doesn't get hit that often, and he knows how to hang on his feet. Like, Jan Blachowicz is really good. I don't think people really understand how good he is. Like, in his past 12 fights, he's like, or 13 fights or so, he's like 10-2-1. You know what I mean? Like, well, that'd be 13. Yeah, 13 fights. He's about 10-2-1. Only 2 real losses that he had was against Glover Teixeira, which were, he lost a grappling exchange, and versus Thiago Santos all the way, way back when, a long time ago in 2019. So yeah, he doesn't really have any real losses to anyone else. He's been on a tear since 2017, winning the majority of his fights. He had a draw versus Magomed Ankalaev, and we know how good Magomed Ankalaev is, and Jan Blachowicz was able to bring that fight to a draw simply because of how much damage he put on Ankalaev with the leg kicks. So even that's going to be another aspect of this fight, where Alex Pereira does have great leg kicks, but Jan Blachowicz also does too, and he knows how to check leg kicks really, really well. So I think that Pereira is going to be more likely to try to implement a leg kicking game, and I think that he may get in trouble trying to do that with Jan Blachowicz, because Jan Blachowicz is really good at the leg game. Even though he's not known to be this crazy world champion kickboxer like Alex Pereira, his leg game is really good. So also, Pereira just got knocked out a couple of months ago. I know that he's going up to 205 now, so you could say something else, but he just got knocked out. Even if he has Glover Teixeira in his camp, and maybe his wrestling game might be a little bit good because of, he's had Glover in his camp, it doesn't change the fact that he's just not good on, that's just not his game in MMA. And, last but not least, I'll say this about this fight. I know that Jan Blachowicz is going to be very, very determined to beat Alex Pereira, because if you guys don't know, that's who Jan lost his belt to. He lost his belt to Glover, who's in the same camp with Alex, and there's nothing more that Jan would love more than to get some get back. So that's how I see the fight playing out. I see Jan Blachowicz being able to win. This fight is very intriguing, very interesting to me, so I really wanted to dive deeply into it. But guys, let's not be dumb. Obviously, Alex Pereira has a chance here. He's very powerful. He can go in there and land a shot on Jan and probably get him out of there. It's MMA, and you know Alex Pereira is a world champion kickboxer, so we can't be surprised if he lands something. But I think Jan has more ways to win the fight. I think he's, you know, his kicking game is, you know, good enough to keep up with Alex Pereira in that aspect. He's shown that he can stand with world champion kickboxers, and he's shown that when he can get the takedowns, he can be dominant on top. And if Israel Adesanya can get takedowns on Alex Pereira, what in the world you think Blachowicz will be able to do if he, you know, if he actually implements that? He will be able to lay on top and, you know, pretty much win those exchanges. So I'm gonna go with Jan Blachowicz. I actually want you guys to let me know who you guys think is gonna win this fight in the comment section down below if you made it this far in this video, because this fight is very interesting to me. And yeah, let's move on to the main event. But just one more thing before we do get to the main event, because like I told you guys, this fight is really intriguing to me. The fan in me, I'll say it, I have to say this. The fan in me would love to see Alex Pereira win. I would love to see him become a light heavyweight champion. You know, that's the fan in me. And I would love to see Izzy actually move back up again. And then maybe we could get another Alex Pereira versus Izzy, you know, Izzy fight. That would be insane to me. It would be a crazy story. So the fan in me wants to see that, but you guys know who the pick is. I'm going with Jan Blachowicz. All right, now we can get officially onto the main event. All right, y'all, last but not least, the main event. BMF title on the line. We got Dustin Poirier versus Justin Gaethje 2. This is one of those fights. It's important to me. I mean, I watched their first fight all the way back in 2018. Those are, you know, that was around like the time, about like a year and a half or so I was into MMA, and you know, seeing this fight, it made me a fan of Dustin at that time, and been a fan of him ever since that fight. But yeah, I had to rewatch that fight too, because I know that people like to say that, oh, you know, they're different now and so long ago. Styles still make fights, and these guys pretty much still fight the same kind of way. The only difference I can say, obviously, yes, we can say they both got better, but their fighting styles are still pretty much the same. But, you know, Dustin said something that was really spot on. And he said that, you know, Gaethje is the same fighter. He just fights with a cart, you know, with a seatbelt on now. And it's like, that was pretty accurate, because even in Gaethje's most recent fight versus Rafael Fiziev, it wasn't until the third round that he actually kind of started to like pump the jab out there a bit, that, you know, he looked like a little bit more sharp. But for the most part in the fight, he still was pretty much winging shots, and it's not like he was super accurate. I think a lot of people fell in love with the fact that he had that great performance versus Tony all the way back in 2020. But about that fight with Tony, you know, he took that fight on short notice. Tony was preparing for a grappler in Khabib for months, and then you already put that in there with the fact that Tony was never known to be some type of precise striker anyways. So, you know, Justin had a good performance at the right time. But like I said earlier, that saying that Dustin said Gaethje is a better fighter, you know, are pretty much the same. He just fights with a seatbelt on now. I think that's going to be the difference in this fight. In their fight, you know, all the way back then, Gaethje threw out a lot of leg kicks. He landed 50 of 57 leg kicks. Dustin is a little bit better at, you know, checking leg kicks now. I wouldn't say he's the greatest, but nonetheless, he is better than what he was back then. And if Gaethje does try to go back to that kind of game plan again, you know, Dustin can time that leg kick again with a straight left hand, like he hurt him with in their previous fight, and he could get Gaethje out of there. I don't know why I feel like Dustin Poirier is going to win this fight by submission. I don't usually pick how I think fights are going to end, but I think he's going to be able to win this fight by submission. He tried to take down Gaethje 5 times. One of them I thought he was pretty successful with, but he didn't get it. But I just feel like this fight's going to end up on the floor. Either Dustin's going to be able to drop him, kind of like how Oliveira did, or I feel like there's going to be an exchange where, you know, Dustin can end up on his back and win by like a rear naked choke or a guillotine choke, something along those lines. And yeah, that's pretty much how I see this fight playing out. Obviously, it's going to be very interesting. Altitude is going to be a factor, so if people want to put money on Gaethje, that wouldn't be a bad idea. It's at altitude. Gaethje trains at altitude. We don't know what type of stuff is going to happen on this fight card because of the altitude. That does change the outcomes of fights. Maybe not drastically, but there's going to be a few fights that will be affected by the altitude, because not every fighter is going to be well prepared for the altitude. Some of them might say, oh yeah, you know, we've been here 2 weeks. Not every fighter is going to do that. So it's going to be interesting to see how much altitude will affect this fight. Both guys are well conditioned for the most part. But yeah, that's pretty much it in terms of how I see this fight playing out. I'm going to say that Dustin Poirier should be able to win this by submission. And yeah, like Gaethje's a better fighter now, so is Dustin. But I think that Gaethje still wings shots, man. He's still winging shots. And that's pretty much it. He just slowed down with the output. and he slowed down with just the random, you know, naked leg kicks. He just, you know, more so throws the jab out there a bit more than he used to. So that's gonna do it for the video, guys. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. We've been doing pretty decent with the picks recently. The UFC London card, I'll admit, was not that great. I think we went like 8-6 or something along those lines. Maybe, no, I think it was like 8-7. Yeah, because there was like 15 fights, so we went like 8-7. That wasn't too great, but on the other cards, we did like 10-4, 10-3. So we were doing pretty good. So let's bounce back on UFC 291. But guys, if you enjoyed this video, make sure you guys leave a like on it. If you made it this far, simply comment 500 because we're trying to get to 500, you know, subs. I need you guys to subscribe. And guys, the next videos that will follow is going to be all about UFC 291 this week. I'm going to do a best bets video, and I'm going to do a DraftKings video so you guys know, you know, the best and worst picks for DraftKings in terms of fantasy for that 200K first place prize. And so you guys also know the best bets for UFC 291. Even though I kind of threw them out there a bit, I want to make videos in depth, breaking those down a bit more so you guys can get a more clearer understanding. So if you guys want to see that, be sure to drop a like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you guys never miss another upload, man. It's your boy, Jared Blessed. It's been a pleasure, and I'll catch you guys in the next video, man. Peace.